Welcome to Interesting Choices, a podcast where we talk about different media and all of the interesting choices that they make. Movies, books, video games, music, any different type of media, any interesting choice. I'm one of your hosts, Kate.
And I'm Sky.
Hey, Sky.
Hey, Kate.
So, this week we have something pretty interesting.
Yeah, we just kind of stumbled onto this while we were looking for something to talk about.
And it's one of those instances where in America, it's a relatively obscure film, but in its home country, it's probably a huge blockbuster.
Wikipedia says it made double its budget back. So in the US, that usually means it's a flop, weirdly enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that's because, this is a screwed up country.
In the US, the budgets are a ridiculously huge amount. But here, this movie that we're talking about is an Indonesian film called Gundala.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about this going into it, and then I did some diving afterwards. But it looks like this character was actually created in 1969. Indonesia apparently has a very robust comics universe, I guess, for lack of a better term.
This is a film very much in the vein of a MCU entry, even down to the very stylized Marvel-ish intro at the beginning, where you have, the hand-drawn characters that vaguely look like American superheroes zooming towards the screen, and you see vaguely Captain America, vaguely The Flash, vaguely Wonder Woman, vaguely Aquaman, and you're like, what is this film?
Yeah, apparently it's the first film of an attempt at another cinematic universe by Bumi Langit, the studio company, who is trying to get all these disparate heroes from across time and the Indonesian comic scene and bring them to film. And this was pretty good, actually, I gotta say.
As a first entry into a cinematic universe, it does everything it needs to do. It's a solid origin story. It sets up a lot of interesting threads that future movies could pick up, introduces some other characters that may have their own films. They learned their lessons from Marvel Phase 1, I guess.
Yeah. Like, they don't weigh everything down with exposition. I've seen that happen a couple times to some attempted CU Dark World, for instance. The Mummy was just super weighed down with all this exposition. They wanted to shove the world in your face. But this one's just like, they put the dots there and they let you connect them. And that's the right way to do it.
Yeah. It's really cool, and I really like all the acting, the directing. In previous eras, foreign films have always had a sort of reputation for being less polished than Hollywood productions because they didn't have the experience or the technology or the funding to do so. But the production value on this movie was super high.
Yeah, and it was only made for $2 million during the course of either a month or a year. That Wikipedia isn't super clear on it. Either way, that's super fast.
The script and the search for the director took a couple years, but once they got it into pre-production and everything, once that was finished, wow, they did a lot with that $2 million. It's shocking how little Hollywood can do with 10 times that budget compared to this film.
I seriously would have guessed a much, much larger number for the budget. And aside from some very small pacing issues and a couple things that don't quite make sense plot-wise, it's just a really good movie. Like, the fight scenes in this alone are worth watching it. Like, if you've seen The Raid or any other Indonesian cinema, for me, that's just The Raid.
I have to confess, I haven't watched a whole lot of Indonesian action cinema, so this was a really good introduction to that type of action. And boy, it was really exciting. My partner, when I started this film, she was like, I might sit down and watch it for a couple minutes, but I got other things to do. And we both ended up sitting and watching the whole thing together because it was just that enthralling. But in a way that was different enough from the Hollywood tropey action films that it was still super fresh.
Yeah, I tried to sit down and note scene by scene what was going on, because that's one of the problems we kind of had. Sometimes we get a little too into the beat by beat story going over, and I kept getting caught into it and forgetting to write notes. So I have stuff like, Army of Orphans and Market Burn, and Evil Violinist.
Yeah. So to give you a bit of a preview, it's a really interesting world. And going into it, if you don't know anything about the sort of previous history of these characters and how they interconnect and their relationships, it's wild. Because you're like, okay, this is maybe a superhero movie, but then it goes places and you're like, ooh, wait a minute. wait a minute.
This is by a wide margin, like one of the most contrived supervillain plots I've seen, but also one that actually ends up making a certain amount of sense in spite of that.
Kinda. So we can get into that, but this is definitely like some fifth dimensional chess there. Like,
yeah,
other villains may be playing 4D chess, but this is a double long con type situation that I'm just way into.
Other villains are playing on the outside of the cube. These villains are playing on the inside of the cube as well.
So let's just get into it.
Yeah, it opens with unionizing.
Yeah, that actually is one of the really great things about this movie that I love, is that a lot of superhero films are about a superhero that finds their way into being an agent of justice and protecting people and doing whatever. But most of the time, they're faceless people who are vaguely in the city. You're saving the world, I guess. You never really see the consequences of it. But this movie directly opens up with the poor people who are having their rights trampled by capitalists who are very much about to exploit them using any means necessary.
While they're marching, they say that their boss has enough money to hire all these private guards who are decked out in full riot gear to protect the factory, but not enough to pay them a decent wage.
I'm pro any film that starts off with labor organizing against the bosses. And so you have this large mob of khaki-shirted workers marching together to go and demand an audience with the boss to get better rights, longer breaks, better pay, very basic labor rights type things. But you see outside of the gates of this factory, there's a phalanx of riot guards.
Yeah. And I just want to give a quick shout out because there's some really awesome filmmaking in this. Like right from the beginning, I forget even what to call it, but like there's a cut that goes from the title to what you think is a scene, and it turns out it's a puddle. And then it sort of zooms out to the rest of the scene as the character runs over the puddle.
I don't want to keep constantly referring back to how the world has caught up to Hollywood standards, but the world has caught up to Hollywood standards. Like, Hollywood isn't the lone torchbearer of high production quality, high filmmaking talent. It's spread universally, and people are doing some really interesting things with these skills and abilities, and that's awesome to see.
Yeah, but at the union, some busting tries to happen. They get into a big melee. Everybody's muddy and bloody and punching. And the boss over the loudspeaker says, okay, I'll talk to you. But specifically singles out the main character's dad to not talk to him.
He is ostensibly the leader. He's the one that was up there giving the speech. So, it's like, okay, we'll talk to your leaders, but not the main leader guy. You stay outside. You tell all of the rest of the people to go home. If you guys all go home and leave, we'll talk to your two dudes and we'll have a negotiation. They're skeptical. They're like, no, you're definitely going to go in there and kill them. The boss is like, no, I would be foolish to try to kill them because you are all here and I don't want that. So just go. We'll have these negotiations. Everything will be fine.
Yeah, I only want the most bribable of your leaders.
Yeah, well, Cut to dinner table at the house of the union leader, and his young son is there fixing a light bulb with, you see all these wires coming out of it, some sort of contraption. He's doing electronics. The kid's probably about 7,
8, 9.
Yeah. Young child. And his dad is talking about labor rights.
And justice. And, if we ignore the injustices in front of us, then we're no longer human. And just because other people don't care about it doesn't mean we have to not care about it too. And other life lessons.
And here's where we learn that the child, Sanchaka, has astrophobia, which is a word I learned from the Wikipedia article.
Really?
Yes.
So that's what being afraid of lightning is.
Yes.
And this kid's got a reason to be afraid of lightning because it comes after him.
Yes.
A lot.
Yeah, it's raining outside, and if you are familiar with the weather patterns of the South Pacific, there's a lot of rain there. You have a lot of monsoons and typhoons and all sorts of other things that end in "un." And lightning is one of those things that is prevalent because the rain is prevalent. And so outside, it's starting to storm. His mom's like, "Oh, we're going to bed, but you go ahead and close up the shutters before you come up with us." And he's like, "No, I'm scared. It's lightning." And she's like, "Well, it's fine.
It's not going to strike you.
It's not going to strike you. You're in a house." And he kind of tentatively goes up there and quickly shuts them. And then right outside, lightning starts striking like 3 or 4 times. It's like, ooh.
I counted. It was like 9 times before it cuts to the next scene. It's like, wow, that storm wants to kill that kid. They do a really neat thing with all of the lightning in this where they sort of cut in animal sounds with it on the back end of the sound. So it makes everything a lot more ominous. I mean, it's obvious, but once you get used to it, you forget about it, but it's still there.
Honestly, I didn't even notice, and I probably just picked it up subconsciously.
It's a few days later. The 2 guys have not been seen. People are worried. And the father is going to take a group of his fellow unionizers to go give the bosses what for, while Sanchaka and his mom are going to go check on the families of the dudes to make sure that they're doing okay.
The mans are out there marching in the streets, fighting for their rights, and then the women and children are taking care of each other.
Yeah.
In this case, that ended up to be a pivotal choice because as Sanchaka's mom goes to check in on one of the wives of the people that were let into the factory for negotiations, she kind of is brushed off. The wife's like, "Oh, no, we're good. We don't need anything. We're good. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. I'm good here alone by myself.
We're fine. We're all fine here. How are you?"
Yeah. And then they're about to leave when Sanchaka's mom sees a figure in the background who is one of these supposed missing men, and she gets it.
They have been set up. They're marching into an ambush.
Yep.
And this time the guards aren't carrying shields and batons. They've got surplus World War II weaponry.
She immediately rounds on the woman and is like, "How much did they pay you? How much was that bribe to take out the union?" And that's kind of a prevailing theme in the rest of the film, is that everyone can be bribed all the time forever.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, "Oh, we needed the money," and then closes the door.
Yeah. Then they start booking it to try to hopefully intercept Sanchaka's father before the mob meets the other mob.
It's pretty tense, although it's a little weird filmmaking wise, just because they're running. She trips, breaks her ankle or whatever, twists her ankle. Mm-hmm. And she sends Sanchaka off ahead. He gets to the outskirts of where the factory conflict is going to happen. You see one group in the background, your khaki-shirted union. You see the guards lined up in the other part of the group, but they can see each other. They can 100% see each other. And then the union can see that all these dudes have guns and they are not there to play around. And
yeah, they're pointing them at the crowd. For a second, I thought they were going to just unload. But the 2 waves meet and the guards use the guns as batons or staffs, clubbing weapons, instead of shooting people, which is what I thought was going to happen.
Exactly. It was a Chekhov's gun that never fired. And it was very interesting because as the fracas is going on, you see guards bashing the union workers with shields and clubbing them with the ends of their batons. They all have riot shields, and there's a fracas going on. Sanchaka is trying to get to his dad before this happens, but lightning starts and he is terrified and huddles in a corner as it starts striking all around and the battle rages.
And during the scuffle, someone in a mask, or not a mask, looks like a t-shirt he had wrapped around his head, but also wearing the Union colors, comes up behind Sanchaka's dad and shanks him up real good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with a really big kitchen knife. If you told me to draw a knife that would be used to stab someone, that is the first cartoony ass knife I would pick. he falls, and there's a great shot of him like lying in a puddle, and this big like 11-inch kitchen knife is right next to him, just covered in blood. And then over on the loudspeakers, the boss is like, none of our guys are equipped with knives, so it wasn't us.
Well, it was one of the guards fires into the air, which everybody stops, and then he's like, we don't have knives.
Yeah.
Gun.
And so they all form a ring around Senchaka's fallen father, giving Senchaka enough time to weave through the crowd and to lament at his father's passing.
Assassination. And this is pretty affecting for me personally.
Yeah.
I knew it was coming because, the language of cinema is like, so he's going to die. But it still hit me pretty hard.
Yeah. Like all good superheroes, in his fury, he picks up a shield and you don't know what he's going to do with it. But then kind of lightning strikes and the shield shatters and all the other shields around kind of shatter.
Yeah, he gives a loud scream. He sort of lifts it up like he's going to run at them and smack them with the shield. But he gets struck with lightning.
Yeah, and blown back into a post and just knocked into a post.
People get wanged real good when they get struck with lightning in this. It's great. And yeah, he wakes up after that in bed, and they just sort of brush that off, like, stay inside. You don't want to get struck with lightning, get sick again. Mom's got to go to another city.
Right.
To make money.
Yeah. They kind of shoehorn it in there like, oh, a year ago when your dad died, we had to sell the house, and so we were poor, and they needed to move the scene along. Time skip, he wakes up, is left by himself as his mom goes off to try to earn some more coin to keep them alive in this sort of marginal life that they have.
She says she'll be back the day after tomorrow, but in true superhero origin fashion, she does not come back.
Nope.
They don't give like an X number of days have passed. They kind of had an opportunity to do some visual storytelling, I think, because like he goes into the pantry and there's just some chilies and like what I believe to be is some sort of cucumber. I don't know. And he eats it. It's obviously not tasty, but it's the only food in the house.
From the makeup they put on him, he looks like he's dying. He looks like he's starving. Sallow, sunken eyes, on the brink of some horrible calamity. There's a knock at the door, and for a second you're like, oh, is that his mom? But it's actually the wife of the bribe-taking guy from earlier. She sort of shamefacedly appears with a food carrier with a bunch of food that she's cooked, and she's like, yeah.
There's a name for it. I don't remember. I used to know it. But yeah, we kind of skipped over one thing that was really funny to me because like he keeps, I don't know if he's hallucinating it or, because of the hunger or whatever, but like he keeps hearing a knock at the door and he goes over and opens it up and there's lightning.
Yeah.
He shuts the door. It happens like 2 or 3 times.
It does. That's what caused me to call lightning for the rest of the film Sky Mom, because the lightning is definitely knocking and he is not answering.
The first time that kind of seems like the wind maybe blew the door open, but the second time there was definitely a knock at the door and there was definitely lightning on the other side.
Yep. And he's like, Mom, and it was lightning.
Your mother has come back in the form of an atmospheric phenomenon.
When the woman offers him food, you see for a second he kind of weighs his hunger versus his rage, but then
the rage wins.
He kicks over the food carrier thing and then just knocks it to the ground, shuts the door in her face, and goes to lie down and cry and be hungry.
And really, really sweaty.
I've watched a lot of Alone, and so seeing people starve themselves to win a TV reality show and then seeing this kid like in the stages of starvation, he's definitely very close to dying. Because he's a tiny child and doesn't have food, and all he's eating is a cucumber, which doesn't give you enough calories. Not even as many calories as a mouse.
Yeah. He goes outside and he swallows his pride. And why did I rhyme? He eats some dirt chicken, basically.
Yeah.
At least I'm assuming it's chicken.
When he goes outside, the food that he spilled is there. The carrier is gone, but like the food that just went all over the place is still there. And I can see where it would be better to eat garbage food than to take charity from a woman that killed your father, basically.
And he just kind of has one of those moments where he's like, why am I still staying here? He looks at the place and he walks off into Jakarta, apparently.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of the beginning of Final Fantasy VII, and I kind of expected the big logo with the meteor to show up, because Jakarta, the version of Jakarta that they portray was just basically like a big industrial factory lit up at night, and you're like, oh, where's the Mako reactor?
Avalanche should be along any minute. But yeah, we cut to another time jump. At least I think it is. I don't know how far. It's not labeled, but the child is no longer starving. In fact, he's running from a mob of other children.
He manages to run for a while. He's being chased by about 10
or 12.
Yeah, 10 to 12 older boys. They are not his age. They are a couple years older. Some are teens, and he's still the same age. He manages to elude them for a while, but they corner him down an alley.
Yeah. And at the very beginning of this, they beat him up. We don't find out why until later, but where they have him against the wall and they do the punchy thing against the wall with the two people on each side, that was kind of okay. But that's the only point, because they take his busking rattle, I guess, just a wood paddle with some nails through it and then bottle caps on the nails, and I guess he dances for money or something.
It's kind of like a DIY tambourine.
They use that to slice one of his ears.
Mm-hmm.
They get him on the ground and they're about to smash his head in. He moves out of the way. So they hold him down and they're about to again. And then Deus Ex Orphan jumps in.
Some random cool older kid with long hair jumps in and just starts punching dudes and kicking them. And it's just a bunch of children fighting children. And you're like, this is sure a thing.
Yeah, but this is probably one of the best choreographed, not fight scenes in the movie, but child fight scenes I've seen.
Yes.
They do a really good job with fight geography, which is a problem a lot of movies have. This one uses some shaky cam, but not so much. You can always tell where someone is, where they're going to be when there's a cut. It's very solid.
The fights in this movie in general are super legible. You know exactly who's punching who, where they are in position to everyone else. There are no points in this film where I was like, someone got punched. I do not know who or how many dudes are coming against our dude. And I guess it's the thing. I don't know. It's fun to watch. And all these kids are super skilled. I get the sense that they probably just went to some sort of martial arts school and was like, just give us all your boys. Just give us
your most photogenic children.
Yeah.
Don't ask why.
If they look good and can punch, bring them here.
They don't have to recite lines. Can they take a hit? Good.
And they took some hits. They were thrown on the dirt, slammed up against walls. There was some acrobatics.
Some flippy throws, and then the cool kids just got the emoest emo fringe flip over one eye you ever did see.
He definitely had a Terminator 2 vibe, John Connor era Terminator 2.
Eddie Furlong if he didn't suck.
Yes, that type of vibe, and the mob of angry youths are sufficiently cowed by his fighting prowess, and then they scamper off.
And once again, Sunshaka wakes up somewhere he was before.
This boy passes out so often, you would think that he was in an anime and woke up on a beach.
Yeah, it's a habit he will continue through the rest of his life.
Yep.
But we find out that the cool kid is named Awang, and he sort of deals Sunshaka into his philosophy on life. Is mind your business, only look out for number one. But now that I've saved you, these other jerks are going to come after me, so I have to teach you how to fight, so you're not my problem anymore.
Yeah.
Have some corn. It's
a weird philosophy, I'm not going to lie. Be like, okay, I'm reluctantly saving you, but you shouldn't do that to anyone else because...
It turns out the other boys were harassing a girl. We didn't see that part. Mm-hmm. And then he threw a rock at them, and that's why they were chasing him. Mm-hmm. Kind of wish we saw that, but, whatever.
Yeah, he has a strong sense of justice, but Awang kind of disabuses him of that notion because he's like, you'll get killed. You'll straight up get killed. I'm going to do my best to teach you, but you are a tiny child, and you just don't get involved with anyone. Just keep your head down. You'll survive.
Yeah. And through a nice long montage, Sunshaka learns the ancient art of orphan punch kick.
Yeah. And he also learns to distrust rich people because Awang tells him his backstory where he was an orphan that was adopted by a rich couple who brought him into a rich house and gave him an education and everything, but he left because they were abusing him, and so he preferred to take his chances on the streets. So don't trust rich people. They do not have good intentions for anyone.
I must have missed that from earlier because one of the beats later didn't make as much sense to me without that. But yeah, he lets on that there's going to be a train coming through. It only comes through once a year. He's going to hop that train and ride them rails.
Down to the southeast where it's safer and he can have a much more pleasant life outside of the constant struggle for survival in the big city. But he says, I am not bringing you along. Good luck. Good luck, son.
I taught you how to fight. You're not my problem anymore.
Sanjaka's like, what, can I come, please? Please?
No, I taught a man to fish. Now go jump in a lake.
But eventually the train comes and Awang's like, oh, fine, you can come along. Just come along, we'll go together.
But Sanjaka can't keep up with the train with his tiny baby legs.
Yep.
Awang manages to hop on, but they do the grabby, handy, slippy thing a few times.
And Sanjaka is left alone again. But now he has fighting skills.
Mm-hmm. And he asserts himself at the docks later to, I'm assuming, the same gang of kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, apparently they do not care at all about any sort of child labor because it's a line for work being a porter of bags of grain or something, like a longshoreman type job unloading a ship. And you see like 45-year-old man, 25-year-old guy, Sanjaka, like 7-year-old, like 8-year-old, and then like teenager, whatever.
Yeah.
He's through in line to get work, and then some random kid slightly larger than him comes and pushes him out of line and is like, ah.
I sort of looked away at this fight, so I don't know exactly what happened. I came back up, and Sanjaka was like, you mind your business, and I'll mind my business. And next thing you know, he's getting chased by a mob of children.
Oh, yeah. No, he straight up just like jump kicks the dude in the face.
Nice.
And then knocks him to the ground. We didn't really talk about it earlier, but in between missing the train and getting work as a longshoreman, Sanjaka wanders through the city of Jakarta and he sees situations of injustice that he could intervene on. There's a woman getting harassed by two large dudes, like big dudes, I think with a gun. And you see like that moment of hesitation in his face. And you're like, okay, I see what you're doing, dude. But also, that advice probably was good. You will definitely die here if you mess with these two guys.
Yeah, I know you want to help, but you are but a wee babby, and that man has a firearm.
And so he does the thing where he like turns away and minds his own business, but you could clearly see that something died inside of him, even though it definitely was the right call.
He's got this inborn sense of justice, and it just kind of kills him that he can't do anything about that.
Mm-hmm. So after he kicks that child out of line, and you see him like hauling a big bag of grain on his back, cut away to later where he's in the street and he runs into said large gang of previous youths who definitely have it in for him now.
It seems as though passing out and pissing off large groups of people will become lifelong passions for Sanjaka.
It's another long chase through the city, and the mob following him this time is way larger. It's about like 20 kids. There's no way he's surviving this.
Yeah, and like a lot more of them have big clubby sticks than before. But he is scooped up and spirited away by a nice-looking couple in a BMW.
Yeah, in the backseat, he's seeing them up front, and the wife turns around and is like, oh, are you alone? Like, we can help you. You can do one of two things. We can drop you off at the police station, or you can come live with us. And it's kind of weird because the husband, he's driving the car and you can only see him in the mirror. You only see his eyes. And he's like, yeah, we can raise you. What do you want to be? Like an artist? A doctor? A teacher?
Well, even before that, she's like, what should we do? And he's like, whatever you want, honey.
Yeah. Just like randomly picking up strays, I guess is a thing that happens. I've picked up a couple strays in my life, so.
Yeah. So I missed the conversation about the rich couple earlier. So I was like, is this the movie over now? Like we cut to credits and he's going to like, you know, Indonesian Harvard or something.
This is his chance to become like Bruce Wayne, right? Like, but instead he looks out the window and he sees a young boy being harassed by a larger boy who is stealing his ukulele?
Small guitar.
Small guitar.
Who knows?
And he has that moment of hesitation where he's like,
I can fix that.
Or moreover, just like there's injustice in the world and I do not trust these rich people.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't be here. And he just books it out the door and then starts running.
And then we get a match cut to the future where he's a tall man's.
Yeah, he's a tall, handsome man.
Yeah. Dude is cut.
Mm-hmm.
All that orphan training.
Yeah, adult Sanchaka is just a real cool dude. He's just jogging, very, very fit, but he works as a security guard in a printing slash mechanic in a printing factory. Yeah, like the first time we see him at work, all of the workers in the factory are like, dude, why are you a security guard? You should definitely be a mechanic because like you know more than the mechanics here. He's like, just doing
He's not saying anything, but like the security guard supervisor and the technician supervisor are like arguing about who he should work for. Well, he's fixing the printing press. Yeah, we see that affinity for fixing stuff has followed him into adulthood.
As a security guard, he's, just a low-paid laborer, just working for the man.
Mm-hmm.
Cut to Indonesian legislature. All
sorts of mans in all sorts of suits. And there's a hotshot young politician, and he has brought his family to this party, I guess.
He is a idealistic young politician, brand new to the scene, and all of the old hands are like, we like what you're doing, but also, you probably want to kiss...
Chill the F out, bro.
Yeah, chill the F out. There's a guy over there. You want to kiss his ass. Everyone has to kiss his ass. Don't worry about it. And the young guy's like, isn't that a mob boss? I'm not going to play nice with some mob boss. The reason I'm here is to represent the people against people like him. And they're like, we all got to do it, dude.
Dude, let me clue you in on this dude's backstory. Okay.
It's such a long sequence.
Yeah. Like, on the one hand, it kind of pulls away from that, but that scene was kind of incidental in the first place. So, like, I don't know where else they would have put this anyways, so it's fine. But... apparently, he lived on one of the largest plantations. His father owned it and treated the workers very poorly. They tried to unionize. More unions.
Mm-hmm.
And it was going well, but then one of the workers had an affair with another worker's wife. One of the workers got killed. So that worker, who I guess was the union leader, they don't give a name or anything, but it looks to be the same person, frames the plantation boss, the mafia guy's dad, for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the union becomes a mob out for vengeance.
Yeah, and you see the young Pencor, the name of the crime boss, you see young Pencor in his room peeking through a keyhole as his family are just being shanked in the other room.
And someone comes towards his door. For a second, I thought they were like, oh God, are they going to stab this child?
But no, instead,
there's a really good shot. Like some liquid comes under the door and he stumbles backwards and it cuts to a wide shot of the room. Just as that apparently gasoline catches fire and chases him towards the back of the room. And it's just a really nicely done shot.
Mm-hmm. The only thing in the corner of the room is a big wardrobe thing.
I guess the windows were barred because he goes to both of them and can't get through. Like he just hides in the closet from the fire.
Yeah, heedless of smoke inhalation, he goes and hides in this wardrobe and somehow miraculously survives.
Yeah, we don't know how. I thought maybe later there'd be it's like, oh, it turns out he's got fire powers or something. But no, fire doesn't like the wardrobe.
It liked it well enough to burn half of his body.
Yeah, they did a really good job with that continuity because the scar makeup on grown-up Pencor is on the same side as the fire was when you were seeing him as a child. Like it was burning from that side, which is cool. I just thought it was a neat little...
Yeah, they kind of intercut between adult Pencor after the kid goes in the closet and then back to child Pencor, now half burned. He is being put into an orphanage by his abusive uncle, and it's a horrible place where the kids are beaten and killed and exploited and abused in all sorts of different ways.
We get sort of like a cut back to the present and is like, no, dude, that may be tragic, but check this out. There is further backstory for me to exposit to you.
Yeah, because the young guy's like, that's cool, but like, why do I care? Like, this guy sucks.
let me tell you about that time he unionized an orphanage and got all the kids to murder the caretakers.
Which is what he did. And it was the head of the orphanage was tied up to his bed and the kids were like gleefully cutting his throat.
God, that was so creepy.
Some guards were tied up and burnt at the stake.
Yeah, around a tree. Or they were doing Ring Around the Rosie and splashing them with gas.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is the whole reason his uncle had put him there. It was so that hopefully that the uncle would get the inheritance of the father's holdings and stuff. But since he didn't die and in fact became the king of the orphans, he inherited his father's stuff and put all the children through college or whatever. And there's his army of orphan assassins now.
Yeah. And he's opened up thousands of orphanages around the country and now has like a bazillion orphans under his control.
Yeah, which is like, as far as backstories go, like, wow, like recruiting orphans to be your assassins.
It's basically the Umbrella Academy thing, but he was way more successful.
Yeah, and also, you know, it's regular kids and not space babies.
Are they?
Well, I mean, there's that one guy, but...
Yeah. Because we cut back to this group and the new politician's like, I mean, he sounds scary, but also...
I'm not shaking his hand.
And Pencor comes over, like he kind of hobbles over and he's like, hey, I just want to say hi to this new politician. And he's like, no, I know who you are. I'm not shaking your hand. I'm here to stop people like you. Bleh.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm but a humble private citizen here to talk to my representatives. Good guy act, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and he stumbles off, and the other two politicians are like, oh boy, you done fucked up, son.
Yeah. Pancor's a really well-done villain, and the actor does a ton there. But I really wish people would stop with the whole disabled person is the villain thing.
Yeah, like he didn't need to be disabled. I mean, just having a rich guy be a villain is enough.
Yeah. My only real gripe with him besides that is some of the burn makeup is like thicker than it should be. So it looks like his burn half is kind of swollen compared to the rest of his face, especially around the cheek area. But yeah, hotshot politician goes home. There's a brief kind of spooky moment where they're at a train crossing and some beggars kind of bang at the windows and he pays them to go away. That's not the last time we'll see them.
That is the most dangerous train crossing in all of Jakarta, apparently.
Yeah, like 8 people get killed there in this movie.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I get it. You have one set. You're just going to, one location, you just reuse it. It's fine.
But yeah, they get back to their, I guess, apartment. It looked a lot like a hotel, but I think that's just the way some of the buildings are constructed.
It was definitely a Marriott. They credited them in the credits, but it's fine.
Okay, so they were just using hotel rooms to stand in for apartments. That's great.
It was like a luxury condo type thing. So some of them do kind of look like that.
But a hotshot politician sees someone kind of sneaking in the periphery of his vision as he's entering the room. And he tells his wife, you know, go in, lock the door. I'm going to go check this out. And it is an empty hallway until Sleepy Fireball guy shows up.
He kind of looks like the guy from the last Matrix movie, the Oracle's henchman.
Seraph? I forget his name.
I don't remember his name.
Yeah, he's just got a fireball in his hand. He's like, sleep.
Yeah, it's weird because he doesn't throw the fireball. He just makes you look at the fire and then you fall asleep.
Yeah, he's got like some sort of hypnosis illusion powers, I guess, because that comes up later too. I really would have liked more of him. Like, what's his deal? When there's the big rally, the orphan army scene later, he's in like a psychologist's office with a guy on a chaise longue and he's waving his hands over him. Like, what's going on there? I feel like I'm missing some cultural context here.
Spoilers, I think he might be like the only villain with powers.
Aside from like the very last guy.
Sure, yeah. But of the orphan army, I think he is the only one with powers that we get to see. It's kind of implied that Pencor picked the best, most immoral orphans.
The politician wakes up and he's tied to a chair, which is in turn tied to a pulley, which has his family strung up out over, I guess, the parking garage, like one of the parking garage levels. Pencor gives the whole, why did you humiliate me like that? I gotta send a message, you big jerk.
And the guy's like, I'll do anything. Just let my family go and I'll do anything you want. But hypnotist man has set up a little candle underneath the rope to burn the rope holding his family. It's a weird scene. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I'm not 100% on everything that went down there. The fire burns through the rope. The family falls. The politician runs to, I don't know what he thinks he's going to do, catch the rope with his teeth or something.
Right.
But he runs after them and jumps.
It's even weirder than that, though, because, like, the rope burns, you see them starting to fall, then he runs into the elevator, goes down the elevator, and then runs past the security guard, and then you see the rope, like, slipping above him, and then I guess his family falling even further, like, and then he jumps. So the implication is that his family fell. He was trying to catch them by going downstairs. And then when he couldn't, he just jumped off.
Yeah, so my take on it was that, like, Sleepy Fireball guy, because they don't name him, as, like, hypnosis or illusion powers, and, you know, he, like, none of that was there. He just made the politician think that, so that he would run and jump out of the parking garage. So, like, the scene of them falling after he jumps, that's all in his head, because after he hits the pavement, Sleepy Fireball guy pulls up next to Pencor's car, and he's like, before he died, he got your message, which means Pencor wasn't actually there. Or at least that's what it tells me. It's weird.
And then one of Pencor's henchmen is like, if you were going to kill him, why did you even go through the whole process of telling him to kiss your ring and make him regret all these things? And he's like, Pencor, in a pretty badass move, not gonna lie, he's like, well, I know what happens after life, and if there is an eternity, I want him to suffer regret for all of it. It's like, that's cold, dude.
That's some cold shit, man. And then there's this guy, I don't know, it's not really important. It just goes funny to me. I thought he was a bodyguard. He's bald. He's like a big dude, like a really big dude. Bald with a big beard. Turns out he's a politician.
Yeah, he's a legislator in Pencor's pocket, but he's also in the pocket of someone else.
Yeah, he seems to be, at least for most of the movie, another one of Pencor's underlings. He's not, but we don't learn that till later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's Pencor's, like, they call him his partner, like his sort of business associate / co-villain. I don't know if we ever really get his name, but he's Gazul.
Yeah, he says it at the very end when he's talking to spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to spoil that till the end because, like, holy shit.
Yeah, just know that there's the politician dude who's working for Pencor and this other guy, Gazul, and then they'll randomly show up throughout the movie, and you're like, I don't know who this guy is, and I don't know what he's doing here.
He's pretty sus.
Maybe if I understood the comics, I would be like, oh shit. But
from what little I could glean, like in the comics, that legislator is, like, that's his role. He's the guy who's in their pocket and the legislator.
Mm-hmm.
But Gazul is like the big bad, like the Lex Luthor to Gundala's Superman.
Mm-hmm. He's listed as the nemesis in all of the wikis.
We don't really see him do any of that. In this movie, though, Pencor's the main villain. But let me check my notes. Yeah, we got a thing where Sanchaka goes home and he's ignoring people in need, like his neighbor and someone getting harassed outside of his apartment. And when he goes back to work the next day after all this, someone's banging at the big giant metal gate. This apparently printing facility is like a compound.
A lot of factories in developing nations have those sort of gates out front.
Okay.
Weirdly enough, my ancestral family home was purchased by a printing company after we left Vietnam, and it has one of those big slidey gates. Not quite as big, but like the same sort of thing. But yeah, there's a bang there. They open the like little peephole.
The what do you want hole.
Yeah, the what do you want hole. And they see a man sort of banging on the door saying, oh, this mob is chasing me. You got to let me in. And the security guard's like, wait a minute. Why are they chasing you? Are you a pickpocket? And he's like, maybe. Yes, I'm definitely a pickpocket. And they're like, no.
No, maybe. Yeah, help me out.
And Sanchaka's like torn because he's like, But the other guy's like, no, we're not helping you. You're a pickpocket. Like, let the crowd have you. And so they close the door.
And then the oldest security guard, who I've labeled as dad number 2.
I'm just going to call him Uncle Ben.
Yeah, that's fitting.
Uncle Ben is like, dudes, what are you doing? Let this guy in. And they're like, but he's a thief. And he's like, no, we're not going to let anyone get murdered in front of our building. We help people who are in need. We're going to take him to the police. If you want to survive this, thief, we're taking you to the police. Are you okay with that? And he's like, I Yes, sure.
Yeah, they let him in, and he hops on the older security guard's moped, and the older security guard orders the other younger security guard to hop on the back for a moped manwich down to the police station.
And then they speed off, and Senchaka's watching them go through the peephole as the crowd is chasing them off, and he's like, morality.
Senchaka thoughts.
But I think that's when he goes home.
That's when probably my favorite fight scene in the whole movie coming up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's like, I've really let my sense of justice lapse. Let me think about that some more while I step out of the shower so the audience can get a good long look at my hot bod.
It is good hot bod. His apartment is exactly the sort of apartment that you would expect from the character that they set up earlier. It's covered in books. He's clearly well read if he's not formally educated. He's got electronics kind of scattered around that he's been fixing because that's just his jam.
Yeah, he's got 2 different soldering stations, but he hears his neighbor getting harassed again. And this time he does something about it.
They're threatening to do severe violence on this woman and a child. And so right when they're about to hurt her, I forgot how, whatever.
They were just sort of grabbing at her.
Yeah.
But he kicks the shit out of her.
He does. And it's a pretty cool close quarters fight. The woman he's saving also manages to run in there and grab some dude by the scruff of the collar as he's jumping and then slam him into a table.
Yeah, she body drops him onto the coffee table. That was so great.
Yeah.
That was such a great shot.
And then Senchaka finishes it by body slamming the other guy on top of the first guy.
Yeah. And then my favorite part is he's doing the punch combo thing, and then he goes he's going to hit the guy in the face, and he just slaps him real good.
It is your very good Stephen Chow, slightly comedic kung fu fight sequence, but with Indonesian martial arts and punching.
Yeah, it looked very much like Penchak's a lot, but really good fight choreography, really good, geography, knowing where everyone is. The only part it was weird on was when the woman drops the guy onto the table when he's jumping. The angle seems like she would have to run across the room to the corner and then behind him and then drop him and then run back to the closet bathroom thing where they're hiding. But it's such a good fight scene. I don't care.
It's a weird edit, but it's fine. It's a dope move. The woman is Wulan, and the little boy is named Teddy, and he's wearing headphones, which is kind of his defining feature.
Yeah. We find out they don't work, but he, like many people, just wears headphones so no one will talk to him, which made me chuckle really good.
But before she can thank him, Senchaka is already out the door and he's back at work. I think in the legislation building, there is a scene between Pencor and his pocket legislator where he's like, dude, I trusted you as one of my minions to take care of this whole market situation. Why aren't you taking care of it? Do I need to take care of it myself? And bald, beardy legislator is like, no, I'll take care of it, sir.
Yeah, it's really funny, too, because they usually use him for muscle. You see him working with a pickaxe later and then with a sledgehammer after that. Pencor has a chat with Gazul, and it's very sinister and portendy.
Yeah. Is that where they kick off the main plot?
Before that, Senchaka gets attacked by those 2 dudes leading a mob at the print shop. In another great fight scene, featuring the very first appearance of what I started calling the hooligan hole.
Yeah, that pit that he just throws dudes into.
Yeah.
I was like, every time he threw a dude in there, I was like, they're definitely dead. He's just killed 3 men.
3 or 4 guys. But yeah, mob of dudes roving, weaving in and out of the printing presses, up and down staircases, climbing them from the sides. Another really good fight scene.
There's a great side trucking shoot fight sequence, kind of like you would see in Old Boy or Snowpiercer. It was dope as shit.
Oh, yeah. I think that one was in the trailer, too. That was when I was like, oh, we may need to watch this movie.
Yeah. They're fighting through this factory, and he managed to punch a lot of them, but there's 30 dudes chasing him.
Yeah.
And they managed to get him up on the roof.
And he takes a bunch of them out, which was really funny, because earlier, he was wailing on them with, a big mag light, and you could hear the clunk of the metal, and they weren't going down. And then when they get to the roof, he's knocking people out left and right. And it's so they brought their A dudes on the ground, but this is their D squad up here.
I'd like to think that he just wore them down enough that they were at the end of their health bars.
Yeah. But yeah, they managed to overwhelm him. First, they just slice his other ear and then they're going to go. But then a group of them are like, hey, there's a roof here. He's not dead. Let's fix that.
Yeah, they just pick him up bodily and huck him off the roof.
Yeah, I literally in my notes have gets chucked off of a roof.
They home invasioned this printing factory and then murdered one of the guards. And they're like, well, we basically have the run of the place, so why do we have to go? But Sanchaka falls face down on the side of the building in a puddle.
And lightning finally finds him.
Yeah. I like to think it's because both ears were cut. And much like an arc light, he needed that extra little gap because you see this lightning strike him specifically on the ears. Every time lightning strikes, it always forks into two and goes down to each of his ear tips.
I didn't notice that until like the lightning rod scene later. But yeah, he wakes up in his house somehow.
Yeah, he doesn't know either. He's like wrapped in a blanket, fully clothed, and he's like, well, that happened.
Yeah, and then that politician scene was just before he wakes up. But yeah, then Wulan just pops in and is like, take care of Teddy, shuts door, leaves. And he's just like there in a blanket like, you gonna pay me or...
Not only did he save your life, you're using him as an impromptu babysitter now? Well, I guess you know this guy's vaguely trustworthy.
He can handle himself in a fight. That's good enough.
Yeah, but here's where you learn from Teddy that his headphones are broken. Wulan is his sister, not his mom, like everyone thought. She's off doing something, but Sanchaka fixes Teddy's headphones, sets him up with some music, and is like, dude, I gotta go to work. I don't know what time it is, but I gotta go to work.
Stay here.
Clearly, he can't just abandon a child at home. He knows what that leads to. Cut to the scene of a speech in a farmer's market type thing.
Wulan is leading the farmers' marketeers to unionize.
Yeah. Apparently, outside forces have been trying to push them out, and they've been hiring hooligans to rough them up, which is why they were harassing Wulan earlier. She and her co-leader are there trying to rally everyone together to stand against these thugs, but they are just simple farmers and salespeople and do not feel like they have the ability to stand against armed hooligans.
They're pretty fired up, though, but then she notices that Sanchaka's there with her brother and is like, hey, what are you doing here? I told you to take care of him. It's like, I got work. I don't know who you think I am.
And she's like, why did you bring him to this dangerous place? And he's like, what?
She's like, did you at least feed him? He's like, I don't have food.
Yeah, like, poor dude. But before they can really get into it, Sanchaka kind of looks down one of the corridors of the market and sees a familiar mob of dudes.
Well, someone comes running up and they're like, they're coming. And then, it's the mob. And there's a really neat shot. Like, I keep saying that, but there's some good filmmaking here. Like, really just interesting filmmaking. Like, he's at the apex of this right angle. On one side, you have the Marketeers Union, and on the other side, you have the thugs, and it's sort of camera pans back and forth between the two legs, and he's caught in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And they're surprised he's not dead.
Yeah, they're like, wait, aren't you dead? We killed you. But whatever, we'll kill you again. There's a great shot where you kind of pan from the farmers to the thugs. And the farmers are like, wait, you know this guy? And the thugs are like, get him. And then it pans down the other branch of this intersection where Sanchaka is just booking it, and you see him in the distance.
Well, he chucks one of them into a big thing of chilies, and the lady's like, don't fight here, you're ruining my stuff. And then he zips on out of there after that brief moment.
He runs past a bunch of scooters and then decides that that's not a good place to fight either, and finds a big open area because that is the best level design for this type of fight.
He's also been headed off at the pass, but yeah, he wrecks these guys. Like, he sweeps through them like a wheat thresher.
To the point where he jumps up and he shoots lightning out of his hands, and then he's like really surprised for half a second and then tries it again, but nothing happens.
Yeah, it was a great moment. Like, the humor in this isn't played up too much. It's not super quippy. It's just there, and it hits, and it's great.
Mm-hmm. You see him do some literally superhuman things where he gets hit with weapons and shrugs it off. He picks up dudes and just like chucks them around like rag dolls. He is basically in like EX superpower mode, fighting off 30 dudes. And I know it's 30 dudes because they make it a big point that he's fighting off 30 dudes.
There's a really great beat where like he thinks there's more coming and he looks around and everyone's on the ground moaning and holding various body parts and he's in, you know, his ready stance, and then it pans up and the farmers are all just there in a crowd staring at him, mouths agape.
Yep.
And he's just like, I gotta go to work.
Yeah. He has such a strong work ethic, this boy. This precious boy.
But yeah, Agong, he's talking to him and he's like, so you fought 30 guys. You sure they weren't like toddlers or old women or...
I really like Agong, aka Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
He just constantly gives Senchaka shit.
Yeah.
He cares about this boy and he knows that he's capable of so much more, but isn't like living up to his potential and sense of justice.
He's like tending to his wounds and he's like, if it was that easy, why'd you get hurt? And he's like, well, I lost my powers like halfway through. It's like, you sure they weren't old ladies?
But that confusion is shortly cleared up when there's a bang at the big gate again, and it is all of the farmers again.
I love that. It's like, it's not just Wulon and like the co-unionizer. It's everybody in front of the what's going on hole.
Mm-hmm. They're like, hey, come fight with us. We need you. You can't leave us here after you beat up those 30 men. And Uncle Ben's like, wait, he actually beat up 30 men? And they're like, yeah, it was like 30 men. He was pretty dope.
Hell yeah. Look, you had bruises before, but they're gone. Yeah, he doesn't want to. And he's trying to explain, you know, I'm not powered up anymore. And then co-union guy, who I guess is named Nemo, just walks up behind him and wangs him on the head with a 2x4.
Poor guy passes out again.
He does it twice.
Ah.
And then he passes out. Like, he hits him. It's like, what was that for? And it's like, he's just faking it. Whack!
We didn't talk about what happened with the rice, because I think that happened earlier.
It happens after the portentous conversation between Gazul and Pankor at the parliament. He's like, they're going to have to listen to me soon. Cut to a rice distribution center, and some guy forgets to leave the parking brake on, and this van slides back into the guard hut, and everyone's crowded around it. But while that's happening, people are slipping glow sticks into the rice.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of clearly Pankor's agents with these giant syringes filled with like
huge syringes.
Yeah. Filled with toxic green Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Secret of the Ooze type goo. And they're injecting it into the bags of rice in the national rice supply, which I guess there's a national rice supply. I didn't know that about Indonesia.
It makes sense. Like, it's just it's a national distribution center if they get rice to everybody, which is cool. But and then there's just the one guy who didn't get a syringe. He just has an ampule. He's like, break, throw it on top of the pile.
Yep. And they are super obvious about it. They are not like being stealthy. They're just like walking from thing to thing, jabbing each thing.
Yeah. Should we go over the entire scheme now? Because I think if we try to unfold it through the story, it might get a little convoluted-y.
We can go over parts of it now because it's a weird scheme.
There's a double bluff.
It is the longest long con I've ever seen in one of these. And it is one of those things where everyone's getting played in some way.
Yeah.
Let's just go over the whole thing.
I want to run this down because this is bananas. This is a bananas plan. Like,
yep.
So at the wedding scene later, which is a hilarious scene and I love it, there's a camera shot at the rice. So it's like, oh, rice. Something's going to happen. And some people eat it and they start Alka-Seltzer sicking it up.
Only pregnant women, apparently.
Yeah, it cuts to only pregnant women doing it. And it turns out that whatever they put in the rice is only affecting pregnant women. And it's going to alter their babies so that they get born without morals.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how they figured this out, but one of the legislators is on TV being like, we don't want a whole generation of immoral babies, but it's going to happen if we don't come up with some sort of antidote for this horrible poison that's been slipped into the rice. And you see the video of these people obviously going around oozing up this rice.
Yeah, there's security camera footage online, and it's like another one of the legislators, like they're talking about it later, and he's like, you know, what does that even mean, immoral? Like, you know, people who watch porn, the LGBTQ community, what even? And I'm like, in my head, it was much easier just to be like, okay, so instead of that, evil babies.
Yeah, because that is the implication, is that they won't know right from wrong. Like maybe they're all just entirely, psychopathic or something, right?
Yeah.
Which still not great to lean on weird mental illness tropes, but like they do discuss it. They're like, actually, like we could just raise good human beings.
Yeah.
This whole thing kicks off a huge discussion in the parliament about what we should do about it. Some guy's like, I know a dude with a biotech factory who can make an antidote for this.
But we have to legalize it because it's not legal somehow, but they don't know what's in it.
Yeah. Weirdly enough, I think it is a COVID vaccine type situation where they're like, okay, we can come up with a vaccine, but it'll probably take more than 9 months to be created, tested, and regulations are keeping this from being distributed. There is no guarantee that all people will get it. So we'll just have a generation of immoral babies. So what we need to do is to create legislation to legalize it very quickly, like cut through all the red tape, just immediately get this to market.
Mm-hmm.
B, make vaccinations mandatory for all the women and distribute it all across the country.
Yeah, this is kind of like a sideways anti-vaxxer movie because it turns out the poison isn't actually a poison. Like that was just, I guess it just made pregnant women kind of sick. The vaccine will actually cause the babies to be born with deformities and therefore evil.
Yeah, it's create a moral panic, capitalize on that fear, and use that in order to slip through your actual goal, which is to do some great evil.
Doing essentially the same bad.
It's weird. It's a really weird plan that's further complicated later on.
Yeah, by the scheme within that larger scheme within a scheme.
Yeah, it is wild.
Well, they keep saying antidote instead of vaccine, but it's pretty obviously that's what they're...
Yeah, it's supposed to counteract the poison already in the women's body, so it is an antidote, but we treat it kind of like a vaccine because that's the language we're familiar with.
But yeah, the whole plot's like, it's kind of clever if it weren't so contrived because they got the guys on camera on purpose. Mm-hmm. To help drive the panic. And then while they're trying to legislate the antidote into existence, Pancor's trying to stop them. Like he's convincing them that he doesn't want them to have the antidote around.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those, oh no, please don't do that to me. Oh no. And to the point where he sends his army of orphans to murder and coerce a lot of these legislators to his side.
Yeah, but that's throughout all the rest of this. After Sanchaka wakes up from getting bonked on the head 2 times by a union leader, he decides to go help, but the market's on fire.
Yep, while he was not there, some thugs burned down the market, and then there's a kind of reconnoiter at the factory where Wulan, Teddy, and Uncle Ben are hanging out, and they're like, okay, why don't your powers work? You could have helped us if you had your powers. Why don't they work?
And they're trying to go through all the things, and it's like, well, maybe it's because you weren't eating, and that's why you got strength, because he hadn't had food.
Uh-huh. As appropriate, Sky Mom calls. A storm appears outside, and he goes out to the yard and is struck by lightning.
Yeah, this time it only takes him to his knees, but when Uncle Ben tries to go comfort him, he gets some of that blast back from the lightning, gets launched into a wall.
Then he has his powers again, and each time the lightning strikes, it kind of hurts him.
Yeah.
And he staggers around, he's like, ugh, until he leans up against the wall.
Against like a copper pipe or a rod coming off, and it directs the lightning into his ear, and it doesn't hurt him. And then he creates his costume, because that's the whole impetus for that. But yeah, just after he gets his powers back, they go to the wedding.
Oh, right. I think the farmers track them down and they're like, hey, we found one of the dudes who burned down the market. So we're going to go disrupt his wedding and get information out of him about who hired him and stuff.
Well, it's not even his wedding. It's like the legislator, big beard dude is there at the wedding. He's a guest. But yeah, they're like, we want to talk to the guy. And then his minions, who were the guys who were harassing the lady and also led the attack mob at the print factory. They're like, no, you could talk to us. You could tell us what you want, and then we'll talk to the guy. And then the bride comes out. Who the fuck is fucking up my wedding?
Mm-hmm. She basically dresses them down, and then they're like, your husband helped burn down the market. And she's like, what? Did I tell you about getting in with those thugs over there? And are you causing trouble? And she basically chews him out.
Yeah, she's just like, get over here. Get over here. He's like sheepishly walking across the pavilion. It's a hilarious scene.
I don't remember. Is there a fight after this?
After this is when all the pregnant ladies start going, and we go into the plot, or this a big segment of what's going on. We get the guy on TV, the security footage, and all that, and then we sort of get like a non sequitur scene where after he's gotten his powers back, Sinchaka's wearing like a t-shirt mask, and he's helping stop looters and stuff. And there's a big fight, and someone jabs him in the back with a little knife that takes some of his blood.
Yeah, that was a weird scene.
Yeah, like, okay. It comes back later, but it's like
when you see it, it's a really weird scene because like you don't know who he is at first. He's just like some random dude.
Yeah. And there's also some weird symmetry where it also kind of mimics the scene where his dad was stabbed.
Mm-hmm. That's where his powers kind of go out again. So after he finishes beating up the thugs, he returns back to the factory.
This is where we get the lightning ear scene.
Yeah. And Wulan's patching him up, and you can see where he got stabbed in the side.
Yeah. We get more shots of the dim abs, though.
Mm-hmm.
He knows he needs to recharge the lightning, so he hears it going, so he goes outside, and then the copper pipe, and then he starts, like, I need something to channel it into my ears to prevent the hurt. And he's, like, rushing around, and then we get a shot of Uncle Ben, Wulan, and Teddy staring at his creation, and he's like, what do you think?
Yeah. And you see just him with this like duct tape headband with like two tiny little like TV antennas sticking out of his ears, and Uncle Ben,
my favorite Martian or some shit.
Yeah, Uncle Ben delivers my favorite line of the movie. He's just like, "I'm ashamed to be Indonesian." He's just like so disgusted at this terrible, terrible costume.
Yeah, it's just his security outfit, and then he's taped antennas to his ears. It looks so goofy.
Yep. They decide that this can't pass, and he's got to make a better one.
Teddy saves the day by prying part of the logo for the printing company off the thing, and it's kind of like a wing shape.
Mm-hmm.
So they get two of those because it's like a trifoil kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw him like kick it under a printer earlier when he accidentally tore the other one off.
Like with those sort of wings, he attaches them to this set of goggles. And is there a helmet?
He just goes around like taking stuff and pulling stuff apart and stapling it together to make like a pretty dope DIY costume.
It looks cool as hell, honestly. I actually like it better than the final costume.
I kind of like that one a little more, but...
Oh, the final one?
I like them both. Yeah, I like them both better than the comics one, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, definitely. This one feels kind of like a Rocketeer type costume.
Yeah, like Rocketeer mixed with like Spider-Man or something. It's like very sleek, and then lots of reds and browns.
It's the one on the movie poster, but like I like that leather with the mask and the like leather helmet and the jacket with all of the tape around it to insulate anyone that wants to touch them so they don't get shocked.
Yeah, he pulls some of the rubber belts out of the printing press and uses them to like wrap his shoulders and arms in, and it looks really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And he's suited up. Right, he does that, and then the thugs drop by his apartment with some hot tips.
Yeah, they were like real helpful thugs. They're like, I know you think it was us, but...
I'm tired of us thugs getting such a bad rap.
Yeah. And actually, we saw this one very famous violinist disappearing from the scene.
Before we see him, I thought it was going to be Gazul, but it's actually a different guy. We cut to his concert. He's violining it up.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of his show, Sinchaka, in full costume, grabs him, interrogating him. Why did you burn down the market? And then the guy's like, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. Stab. You
think he like maybe stabbed him with his violin case or something? But then he kind of throws it off the side and you see that it is a sharpened metal violin bow.
It's a violin bow. I thought it was just a blade attached. Either way, it's goofy as hell. And he's just cackling it up because he's maniacal or something.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of like metal clanging sounds when he like smacks it against things and like a pipe. So my impression was that it was like a full solid metal bow as opposed to just a blade.
I forgot. After the time he gets struck with lightning and he realizes that's where his powers come from, Wulan walks up behind him and wangs him with a pipe, mirroring Nemo's efforts earlier.
Yeah, he gets wanged with pipes a lot.
Yeah, to varying degrees of success. But yeah, violinist, that fight didn't go as long as I thought it was going to, because he just runs backwards into the street and nature takes its course.
Yeah, I did not expect Gundala's first kill to be an environmental one, but this like minibus just comes and just like plows over the violinist.
Yeah, Final Destination 1 bus runs over him.
Yep, and Gundala's like, I guess at this point, I'm going to call him Gundala, but is Sanjaka's like, I guess that happened.
Well, okay then.
I'm just going to go.
The market is safe. Pencor is presiding over the violinist's body. And, it's like, I found him when he was 4. He was really good at music. It's setting the villain scene. Then he activates his army of orphans.
Yeah, I really like this scene because it's just like random successful people in different parts of life just pick up their phone and it just says father on it. And they like get this maniacal like look in their face and they just take off.
Yeah. And that painter guy was like he looked normal, but then he was saying terrible things.
Yeah, there's like a nurse, there's a blacksmith, there's like a boxer guy.
There's some kind of traditional dance dude. There's a stone sculptor. Did you already mention the doctor?
I guess, yeah, doctor.
There's a chef. There's that college student girl, I guess.
Yeah, she was weird.
She's super weird.
Because you follow her, and this is where they implement, like, Order 69.
Kill the politicians.
Whatever it was, right? Like, murder all the politicians. Yeah. Because the next time you see her, one of the legislator guys who was, like, the most vocal opponent of Pencor is going to the bathroom at a urinal stall, and you kind of do one of those, like, great little pan away and pan back, and she's standing in the stall next to him.
And she strangles him with her book bag tether.
Yeah, and then finishes him off with her
poofy pen.
And it's great.
And she's just got like the worst, not bad, but like the most unsettling maniacal laugh I've ever heard.
Yeah, she is definitely too old for that role. And that's kind of the great part about it. I think it was supposed to be like a high school girl, but they're like, we can't have a high school girl. So we'll make her a college student, but dress her like a high school girl.
Yes, he's got the thigh-high socks and mini skirt whole deal, and the poofy pen, which is a very high school accoutrement.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, you see these various orphans going around executing different legislators.
You just see a high school girl do it. Then there's a guy who's dead in a car, and he seems to have been shot or something. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I assumed he was also stabbed with pen. And then another guy's just in a dumpster.
Right. You see the consequences of the orphan army. And then cut back to the most fatal train crossing ever.
This is about where I got engrossed with the movie and started forgetting to write notes. Because it skips straight from where we learned the vaccine is bad to the very, very end. But yeah, the traditional dance guy, or no, the buskers accost this vehicle, and it's got one of the other politicians in it, and he runs like this group of, like if there's an underground group of bad people, he runs the underground group of not as corrupt people.
Yeah, basically the people that are trying to resist Pencor's influence, who want this antidote to go through, they're secretly meeting so as not to tip off their opponents. He's the leader of this cabal. His bodyguards are like, should we get more people with you? Things are going weird. And there's a bit of a discussion there, but they stop at the deadliest train crossing. One of the buskers runs up and takes the keys through the open window.
Well, it's not open. He smashes it open with a little rattle thing. Like a couple of the windows get knocked out. And then he reaches in and grabs the keys. Mm-hmm. And we see the bodyguards actually get to do a little badassery as they fend off these 4 guys. But then the level boss shows up.
Yeah, he is this traditional dance guy. He's shirtless from the waist up, wearing a traditional mask on the back of his head.
Yeah, and I really wish I knew more about what that was or how all of that was, because that seems so interesting. Like, that's one thing about this movie. It made me want to learn more, not just about the superheroes, but the culture, and like, there's so much here. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he tears these guys apart.
Yeah, he just neck snaps like 3 of them in a row.
Like one guy, he just kind of like puts his foot on his head while he's on the ground and just rolls his heel, snapping his neck. Another guy, he snaps his neck in the air while he's flipping him. But then Gundala shows up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just when you think the old politician is about to die, he's cowering in the back of his BMW or whatever. Gundala jump kicks the guy over the top of the car, and they have a fabulous fight sequence. Gundala knocks the mask off of the dancer's head. He recognizes the same symbol that he saw sort of burned into the violinist earlier.
Yeah, he said it was a tattoo, but it's definitely more of a scar.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, then he picks him up like 2 hands flat and throws him like 30 or 40 feet over the car. And the guy just gets up and walks away like, I'm not leaving because you told me to. I want to go.
Yep. This is where Gundala and the politician meet, and the politician has been trying to get a hold of Gundala this entire time because he knows that there is only one man in all of Jakarta that is able to stand up against Pengkor because his exploits have been making the news, and he's like, we need you on our side. But Gundala's like, okay, bye.
Yeah, it's about now that the movie finally gets to that the vaccines are bad. There's a scene where a doctor looks over it and then sends a thing back to politician guy, and then he tries to get the vaccines stopped. It's a whole lot of stuff at once. Parliament passes it, vaccines go out. We find out vaccines are bad through that. It's a whole sequence.
After the politician guy is saved by Gundala, he's re-energized in his fight against Pengkor. He gives rousing speech, like all of the other politicians, like, we don't want a generation of immoral children, so we have to pass this antidote. And the guy that was saved was like, I used to be a crappy dude, but, you know, I got here through cheating and stealing, but like, even I know that we can't let our kids to be bad and it'll be great.
We gotta do it for the next generation, gang.
We do. So they all pass this legislation. There's cheering in the streets. The crowd that had gathered outside to rally for the antidote are all cheering.
One of them hugs a guard.
Yeah, you think that the unrest in this country would be over because now we're going to get the thing. But actually, they didn't do their homework, even though they said they were going to do their homework, because the politician earlier was like, we need someone to investigate this company that is making the vaccine and make sure it doesn't have any connections to Pengkor.
After it gets approved, his assistant's like, oh, hey, guess what person we all know owns the company that makes that vaccine?
Yeah. Also, by the way, here is a readout of some scientific analysis of this antidote.
We don't see it, so it's like it might as well just be bad news on a piece of paper.
Yeah. And the politician sends it to a doctor who then analyzes it and is like, this is bad.
This bad.
Weirdly, in the background again, there's this weird non sequitur scene where initial bald bearded politician guy who was in Pengkor's pocket and Gazul are in this
graveyard, I guess.
Mausoleum sanctuary thing. It looks like something you would see in Washington, D.C.
So that's the second one. The first one is they dig up a block in like a field, and then there's like the tornado of crows above them. I thought it was ice, but it later turns out it's a big glass cube with something inside it.
Yeah, Gazul has a little glass cube about the size of a golf ball in his pocket. He pulls it out and is like, yep, you're looking for a bigger one of these, so go dig it up, politician man. And this is where he's used as muscle.
You know why I like you? Because you'll just dig crap up for me.
And he digs one up, and there's something inside of it, but you don't really get a good look at what it is.
And then they're in a mausoleum, and then it's like, do you know ancient Javanese? It says bad stuff on that wall.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, brother.
It says enemy of mankind.
It's on a wall.
Yeah. And you're
in a museum.
And you're like, that seems bad. That seems very bad.
That sounds like a setup. He gets back from superheroing it up. Mulan says, hey, I knew your mom. He showed her a picture, and there was kind of a beat, like something was up. She says, no, she's just so pretty. I was taken aback. And there's some like moments too, from like the romantic subplot between them where like she's cooking him food in a skirt, and he's like, why are you wearing a skirt? And then she gets all, I guess tsundere is the only word for it.
Yeah. She springs this on him while he's at work, kind of gearing up to go out superheroing again.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, I guess I have to go find my mom now.
She was like in a hospital and she was going to die soon. It's not really clear what the timeline is for that, but she didn't want to die in hospital. So his mom may or may not be out in the world somewhere.
Yep.
For him to find. It turns out she came back for him after he had already left, which is also like...
Yeah, she was real late, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
With the country now at peace, because the antidote is going out, Uncle Ben's like, well, you don't have to fight anybody anymore, so I guess you could go find your mom. The country's at peace. It won't last, but, this is as good a time as any to go do the do.
But then Prime Minister Gordon calls the bat phone, or the print phone, I guess.
Yeah, I do not know how he got his phone number, but he just called.
This assistant's just like, I found this phone number. It might be the person we're looking for. It's like, how the fuck did you find that out?
I think everyone in Indonesia just knows everyone else, because, the thugs managed to track him down numerous times.
Well, like the time they were going to give him the tip, it's because he happened to be the neighbor of the person they were actually talking to, which is Wulan. But yeah,
yeah.
It's like, hey, I found his work number.
Yeah.
Maybe he's there.
I think it's an open secret who he is, because the thugs definitely know who he is. But regardless, before this, you saw a couple scenes where thugs were causing trouble in the city, and a young boy saw that and decided to stand up against them, and the thugs were about to beat him up, but then his whole community rallies around him because they were inspired by Gundala's heroic actions. And so he's become kind of a national symbol of hope in this dark time, which is why he was necessary for Prime Minister Gordon to track down. And he was like, oh boy, we fucked up. We fucked up real bad. You gotta stop this. You gotta stop this vaccine.
That antidote, it ain't no antidote, brother. Let me tell you.
Yeah, this antidote's real bad, and we can't stop it because only one person knows the number of all of the truck drivers or something.
So you need to go out on a motorcycle and stop them.
Yeah, you got to stop the vaccine, and you also got to stop Pencor because Pencor's evil. And
speaking of,
maybe if you go get Pencor, he can stop all of this. And then you think it's going to kick off this long search for Pencor, but knock knock knock.
Turns out Pencor also has the number to the print phone because he shows up.
Him and all of his thugs grab all of Sanchaka's friends and acquaintances basically who are there. Yeah. So Uncle Ben, Wulan, and Teddy are all kidnapped and taken to the roof.
Yeah, and there's a nice fight, superhero-esque fight on the bottom floor. We get to see some of the orphans do their thing. Some people get tossed into the hooligan hole again.
They don't die though. They come back.
Yeah. We never know what's at the bottom of that. That's what kills me. It's we don't know how deep it is or what's down there.
Nope.
Or what it's even for.
Yeah, there's, I think it was the chef guy had a flak jacket with a bazillion knives, including a cleaver and a paring knife. And
yeah, he had a personal bandolier for his knife block on his body. He just keeps pulling out knives and throwing them. And I didn't realize that until he pulled out the cleaver. And I was like, oh, Chef has joined the fight.
Yeah, and then the doctor is there with her scalpels, and basically everyone that you saw in the activating the orphans montage,
except for the painter.
Yeah, the blacksmith was there with a sword that he forged.
Yeah, 2 giant, what I can only call murder blades.
Yeah, he specifically made swords to kill Sanchaka for reasons.
The sculptor's there with a mallet and a chisel, and he's all whipping around.
There was a very tall woman. I don't remember who she was.
I don't know. I tried to because I was I hope that all of this comes up later because I want to see it. They kind of set it up each of these people were going to get their own scene of confronting Gundala, but it's all just crammed into this one really long fight scene.
But it's a cool fight.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
He's dodging swords and knives and all, I think the hypnotist guy comes out.
He comes out at the end when Gundala comes into his power. It's the end of the rainy season. There hasn't been a lot of lightning lately. So he's a little weaker than he was. He's not at his full power, but he's still kicking ass.
He manages to fight off most of the orphans and make it to the roof where all of his friends are on their knees being held captive by Pencor and all of his thugs.
I don't mean to laugh, but yeah, this is when Uncle Ben's.
Yeah, at some point, Pencor's just you know what? I'm just gonna kill everybody because that's what I do. I'm a villain.
Yeah, Uncle Ben's like, what you need has been within you this whole time. And then he gets his throat slit. He shouts out in rage, and then he summons lightning unto him.
Mhm.
And like we get a nice further escalation because the traditional dance guy who ripped apart the bodyguards before and who he was kind of on par with fighting there, he just chucks him away along with everyone else. Like it looks like he's throwing people off the roof, but then you get a long cut from behind. You can see he's just throwing them further along the roof. And then Sleepy Fireball guy shows up.
Yeah, and he just holds up a fireball in front of his face and says, "Sleep."
Sleep.
And then young Sanchaka appears again and wakes up in bed.
And his parents are home, and they sure are sorry for leaving you, son. For leaving you all alone. And then he has that moment where he's like, my parents are back. And he's like, Dad didn't leave. Dad died.
Yeah. And then you hear Wulan's voice being like, Sanchaka. It's kind of cool because like Dream Sanchaka turns to intercept this blade that's coming at him in his vision. And then there's like a match cut to them on the roof and like adult full costume Sanchaka Gundala. He's holding the blade that the blacksmith swung at him over his head.
Yeah, he's got that murder blade in his hands, and he thunder screams it to pieces, which slits everyone's throats around him.
Yeah, he hoists it in the air, and then like the shields at the beginning, there's this like crack of thunder, and the shards just go everywhere into everyone's throats. It's horrible. But like all the good people are alive.
Yeah, all the good people are alive. The movie's like, this fight's over now.
Pencor has all of his friends down on their knees, and he is about to murder all of them. Uncle Ben gets stabbed in the back, and he is about to dispatch Wulan and Teddy when politician Gordon kicks in the door, shoots Pencor, and that's when Sanchaka gets to talk to Uncle Ben and then learn that the power was inside of him all along. I think that's how it went.
I remember he gets his power, and then Sleepy Fireball guy shows up because I was like, oh, he's going to power his way out of that. But no, it was a logic thing.
Yeah, I think that's how it played out because at the end of the day, I do remember thinking that politician Gordon was badass for just bursting in and shooting Pencor because like it was him that like took him out.
Yeah, it was like I laughed so hard just because it was so out of nowhere. Like we've never seen him with a gun before, and he just kicks the door in and is like, hey, I have a gun now. He's
like, okay, cool. All of these guys are dispatched, but also you have to stop this distribution of all of this antidote because it's very bad. And I have no way of stopping it, but you got to do something. By the way, how did you blow up that sword? Because like, I just got to know how you blew up that sword. It was such a weird, like,
it's one of those, we need to explain this to the audience moments that kind of doesn't jive, but like you can tell what it is. For a second, I thought he was going to like get flash powers now that he was fully into his own, you know, like super speed. But he just hops on a motorcycle and chases after a man.
Yeah, because he looks like he should be a Flash type character with the wings and everything.
Well, from what I read in the comics, or not read in the comics, but read about the comics, he does have super speed as one of his powers. I don't know why they left it out.
They have to have things to give him in future movies.
That's true.
So it's fine. But yeah, he explains that his thunder powers like allowed him to match the resonant frequency of any object and blow it up as long as the thunder matches the resonance, which then becomes immediately very important because cut to a sequence of our boy Gazul and his minion breaking the wall of the enemy of humanity and revealing this giant glass block about the size of a person.
Matching the smaller one and the yet smaller one that Gazul has.
And here's where the wheels within wheels are real weird because the politician is like, oh yeah, what is this material, by the way?
Well, he's like, you're going to make me smash that too? It's like, no, you can't. Only one man can.
Yeah.
Match cut to Gundala.
Well, and but the reason that it was important was he was like, what is this material? It's glass. It's the same glass that we use to manufacture all of the bottles of the antidote.
The poisonous antidote that's going to cause all the birth defects.
Right. So Pencor's plan was to distribute all of this poison, but Ghazul's plan was to use Pankor's plan to distribute all of these bottles so that later on, Gundala...
Yeah, he tries to stop the van.
Mm-hmm. He motorcycles forward and pulls up next to...
The only van, apparently.
One of the vans, I guess.
Yeah, and he tries to get them to stop, and then I guess the guy inside is working for Pankor because he shoots him.
Yeah.
And then we get a plot thread for the next movie.
Yes, a woman in a very, like, cool outfit with, like, a flowing sash thing and, like, these metal ear cuff type things. She just appears in the middle of the road, swings her sash, and flips this van end over end into the air.
Yeah, it gets smashed up. Mm-hmm. And this allows Gundala to grab the glass and to match his thunder's frequency to it and shatter all of the vaccine vials in the country so that the only people who get injected with it are the, like, 3 people who bribed their way to getting it early.
Yeah. So in 18 years, there will be 3 villains, but it's fine.
Yeah. But yeah. And so because of that, what turns out to be a head inside of a cage and a headless body are now free from their glassy prisons. And this is where that blood dagger comes in again.
Yeah. So the plan that Ghazul had would be to get the blood of a hero, which he needed to unlock this caged head that was freed from the smaller block of glass, which he then took that severed head to the larger block of glass, which is now shattered, and there was something in there, which turns out to be a headless body. Mm-hmm. Put it on the headless body. It reattaches itself, and lo and behold, you see the big bad Kiwalawuk, or Willowwook. Big bad guy. I don't know.
I couldn't find anything about him. It was like this moment of, what?
Yeah. So
what?
He is some sort of evil sorcerer god thing from the medieval times that someone had locked away
in glass.
And now they managed to resurrect him, and Ghazul pledges his allegiance to this man and says the gods have been resurrected and they are back in the world, and this one dude doesn't know who he is, but he's one of the resurrected gods. He is Gundala.
Yeah, and that's the only time we ever actually hear that in the whole movie. It's right there.
Yeah.
It's also, this is the scene where we actually only hear Ghazul's name in the whole movie. It's just kind of fitting. I'd like to note that I was so engrossed at this point that the only thing I have after this is basically I had vaccine bad, and then the only other note I wrote for the rest of the movie was glass zombie.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is like the last scene of the movie, in the movie proper, before the credits.
Yeah.
This is where you see, okay, this is clearly a setup for a larger cinematic universe or a sequel or whatever. There are so many threads that are open. Sanchaka's mom, whatever happened to Awang, this new big bad that has appeared, this mysterious woman that came to help Gundala. Like, it's cool. It's super intriguing. You're like, I don't know who any of these people are, but I'm happy to find out.
Yeah, I can't wait for more. I was looking up earlier. I will get to that, though, because there's the end credit scene.
Yeah, it is your typical, like, Batman sequence where the politician is on a roof thanking Gundala for all of his good work. Gundala is now wearing, like, a full Batman-type costume.
Yeah, it looks closer to his comics costume, but thankfully not too much, because his comic costume is basically, if you imagine Captain America without any chest stuff, no shield, and much more prominent ear wings.
Mm-hmm. It's cool. It's like a rubberized costume that it looks like a modern day Batman type interpretation, a little bit more like tactical, a little bit more sleek. The thing I didn't like it is that as soon as he put it on, he kind of lost his character. He wasn't our dude anymore. He wasn't Sanchaka. He was like Christian Bale Gundala, which is fine. Like, he was just like super serious now that he's protecting the city in his Gundala-ness.
Yeah, him and Prime Minister Gordon have a moment where they're like, everything's at peace. You can leave now. And it's like, no, because every moment of peace is worth fighting for.
Also, by the way, thank you for the costume.
Yeah.
The minister's like, it wasn't from me, it was from the people.
And then we get, I don't know what kind of a cut it is, but it's like looking up at him from down at the street, and that's the one from earlier getting into a car, and her bodyguard's like, he's going to need your help someday. And I wrote her name down, and I can't for the life of me remember how to pronounce it.
It's like Sri SC or something, or...
Yeah. They drive off, and the camera kind of pans up to a neon rose sign next to a neon lightning bolt sign, which is kind of cool, I thought.
Yeah. That is your first entry into the Bumi Langit cinematic universe.
Mm-hmm. From what I read, Sri SC is going to get her own movie. It's coming out next year. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking forward to it.
There's another film coming out, Si Buta Darigwa Hantu. I don't know how to pronounce Indonesian. Anyway, there's another movie coming out with a Zatoichi type character, the sort of like sightless swordsman. He's got like a monkey, and he's another one of these cinematic universe characters. They have put up promotional art for all of the other characters that they want to promote. There's Mandala, Godam, Merpati, Tira, Sriasi, Virgo, Aquanus, again, they all feel like knockoff Marvel characters, but in a good way. And they all look really cool. And also, half of them are women who are getting their own movies, unlike Marvel.
Yeah. Yeah, I was reading up on some stuff, too, for all of this. Awang grows up to be Godam, so that's going to be his fate eventually. And I was looking at the original origin story for Gundala, and it's bananas.
It's wild.
He's a scientist working on an anti-lightning serum, but then he gets whisked off to the lightning kingdom and given powers by the god or the king of lightning and the king of thunder.
Yeah.
After his fiance dies.
It's a lot. It's a whole lot. But it's really cool. There's another Gundala movie slated. It's just TBA right now. They don't have a release date yet. But I'm excited to see what they do with that one. Yeah, I'm genuinely excited about this cinematic universe because they did such a good job with this first one. I hope they can keep it up.
I hope that the big plot is better than Evil Babies, though.
Yeah, I think that was just a weird, a really weird red herring to kind of throw into the rest of everything.
Because it's like, if that was it on its own, that'd be really weird. But it kind of makes sense as a red herring because it's exactly the kind of thing that people would latch onto to make a moral panic, to force a politician's hand. But yeah, this is a bananas caper they put together.
Yeah, it is wild, and I'm way into all of this. Yeah. I'm really excited for the Sri SC, or however you pronounce it, movie to come out. She was the first superhero in Indonesia in 1953, and she's a lady, which is again a lot better than Marvel.
I was reading up on her too, and I don't know, I'm not equipped to analyze anything about it. I readily admit to that, but apparently it's a guy, and when he says the magic words, he becomes Sriasi and gets all the powers she has. So
I am not entirely sure because this wiki says that she was just the daughter of some wealthy guy.
Okay.
And yeah, so.
Well, I was reading something that was translated, so I don't know if I was even looking at the right thing. So
yeah, regardless, a lot of these characters in the Bumi Langit cinematic universe are a little bit more original Batman detective style characters as opposed to Marvel fight everybody with your superpowers type characters. She's a special agent of the Bureau of Criminal Investigation and has investigation powers and deductive reasoning and puzzle solving and genius intellect and that sort of thing. She's more of a Sherlock, James Bond type character who also happens to be hella superpowered, which I appreciate.
This movie left me wanting to see more of this universe. I can't wait for more of these. I really hope I get to see them.
Mm-hmm. If they can just keep making these at the budget that they're making them, they will be able to crank out these left and right. And I am really excited to see all of them because all of the characters are so vastly different. Godam, who is, I think, his orphan friend.
Yeah.
Awang, his name is often translated as Patriot, so he's kind of their weird Thor Captain America hybrid because he has a giant hammer and stuff. It's so wild. I'm way into it.
Yeah, I can't recommend this movie enough. if you can get to it. I watched it on Hoopla, which is the public library streaming service. If you have a library card, you just need to log in, put it in, and you've got access to all sorts of movies and TV shows and music and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it's available in your area. Not all libraries are participating in it, but if you are in the Seattle, Washington area, you definitely are. Check your local library. If you can't get access to it that way, it is available on Prime Video. You can buy it or rent it at the same price. So I would just say buy it and always have this in your video library and show it to other people.
Yeah, this is a buy it recommendation, absolutely, if you can. But yeah, that was Gundala. Kate, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on TikTok as Army of Meat. And where can people find you, Sky?
You can find me at shard_corso. That's SHARD_CORSO. You can drop us a suggestion if you have something you want us to watch or take a look at our Twitter. It's at Interesting Choice 6, INTRESTINGCHOI6.
You can also find our episodes on Spreaker. You can search for us in the Spreaker directory, or you can go to Spreaker.com/shows/interesting choices. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, anywhere else you can find podcasts. If there's a shady dude on your corner selling podcasts on CDs out of his jacket, there's a good chance we'll be there too.
And if you'd like to support the show, you can do so at patreon.com/interesting choices. If you pledge at the $5 tier, you can help us figure out what we're going to do next. We'll have a series of choices picked from our backlog with a random number generator, and you can vote on what we'll do next.
Until next time, see ya.
Thanks for listening.